too. It's great to see. Fire away, I'm ready. Just got questions.
Todd, Tom talked glowingly about Landon Roberts and his leadership and being a Hall of Fame leader. Just the collection of guys it's going to take on the defensive side to replace that energy and what he brought on the defensive side of football.
Yeah, we're fortunate. You get, to me, E-Rob was one of those guys that was raised in that manner. So he picked up a lot of the stuff when he was young, and just he needed a voice and got a chance to play some football his senior year. And obviously, with his production and his voice made him really dynamic. It's there. We're training it right now. I think it's something that's trainable. Does it take some energy away from some guys? And I think they maybe shy away from it, yes. But that's a big point of emphasis for us this spring, and going to be huge for us going into camp, is continue to identify guys that can do it. The middle linebacker position and the safety, free safety position automatically by trade or leadership, just like Greg is. Doesn't matter who our quarterback is, that position is. So we're going to put some pressure on those guys to do it, and we're going to start IDing guys. Just to, sometimes organically it happens, but sometimes you got to go out there and say, hey, you know what, you got the ball, go run with it, and make sure our kids are doing it. That's goal number one for us when we meet with our kids tonight.
Coach Herman spoke glowingly about the front seven, but I know you lost some key people in Stewart and Jackson. Talk to us about the personnel and how they're shaping up on the back end, safety and corners.
Right now in terms of obviously we're inexperienced. It's hard to replace 3,000, 3,500 game reps with Adrian, and when you're talking about Will, when you're talking about Stu, athletically, in my opinion, we're going to be in the ballpark with the exception of Will. I mean, it's a first rounder. You're not going to replace a first rounder with somebody that doesn't have his experience or just his athleticism. So we'll go into camp. I've said this before. Khalil Williams, to me, he has a chance to be somebody special, in my opinion. Now, whether or not he goes out there in fall camp and lays an egg, I don't know that. But I know getting out of spring, we felt good with him. Garrett Davis and Terrell Williams from a safety standpoint, and then Howard Wilson, Jeremy, and Brandon, of course. And those are the guys that go along with some of the younger guys. Colin Weiler and Patrick Rosette will be some younger guys that will get an opportunity. And we've got two of the best defensive back coaches in the country. I mean, to me, it goes back to your teacher. If you don't have the experience, and your teacher's got to take you through the place that you're going to get and try to gain that experience in the classroom. And I know they're excited. And the one thing that's really cool about this group is they don't look at it as from a standpoint of, okay, we lost some experienced guys, some really good players around it. They look at it as, don't let my teammates down. So there's a lot of pressure they put on themselves because of the genuine love of everybody else on that unit, that they don't want to let them down. So exciting time for them. Got out of spring, felt good. Going into fall camp, it's the same thing. And everybody's asking that question right now. And as a competitor, you love when people, it's not doubt, but when people try to compare you or maybe look for a weakness in your game. And I think that's really motivating that group. And I know it's motivating the two guys that are coaching them.
Todd, starting off, what's the plan for Ed Oliver to get work in camp? And then secondly, Garrett and Brandon, have they both been cleared for the start of camp?
Yeah, let me start with Ed. Right now, obviously, in terms of his talent level, we all know that part of it. I've talked about this, I think, 2 weeks ago, in terms of him becoming a great teammate, being a guy that can look at upperclassmen and figure out the way that they're working and really buy in and eventually spread our culture. So whether Ed plays 27 plays, 30 plays, 12 plays, is up to Ed Oliver. And that's the way the approach with it. But just like anybody else that's talented, it goes into, Coach Giles going in there, being that guy that can make sure that when he gets on that field, that he can show his tools. And that's probably the biggest thing with any young guy that comes in kind of highly rated, is you don't want that kid to go on the field and be analyzing and trying to figure things out schematically or technically, and then all of a sudden you look at him and like, golly, he's really not as advertised. And a lot of that thing is processing. So that's what we've been working with Ed, is trying to, I know I sat down with him last week and I kind of explained to him, hey, these are going to be the pitfalls when you go into camp. You're not going to line up and just whoop everybody's tail. You know, you got to make sure you keep your composure, and you got to stay ahead of the install. And that's the biggest thing with him. So when he gets out in that field, you know, it's not overbearing in terms of the corrections that he's going to get. And then all of a sudden he puts himself out of position, or all of a sudden he gets knocked back when there's no way this guy should be knocking him back because he's over processing. What was your second
You'll
question?
still rep him at all 3 spots, though?
Right now we will. So we're going to find a home for him. You know, obviously he's dynamic enough to do it. And then that comes into individual matchups, you know, when you get into game planning. You
No,
know,
the last thing was Garrett and Brandon, are they clear?
yeah, they're ready to go. So right now, my understanding from talking with Doc and not getting too much into the injuries, we're full go on everybody.
Along the lines of Brandon, do you think it's going to be a benefit for him not having to worry about, am I going to line up on defense, offense? Yeah, he maybe has a little bit more of a clearly defined role coming into this year.
Yeah, and it's not really defined. The really neat part about our program is when you get up into our office, it's find a way to win the game. And it's not about if Greg Ward wanted to play another position to help us out and do something that part, we're going to do it. And that, you know, from Brandon's standpoint, Brandon's a very smart guy. Obviously, we know what he is as an athlete, and that was out of necessity. And there's no hesitation. The one thing about our offense and defensive staffs is it's all about us, and if he can help us. Now, to answer your question with it, when you put him as a defensive back as full-time, obviously it's going to help him. It's going to help him a lot. So we will see. You know, he didn't play in the spring.
Right.
You know, the little bit of wear and tear going out of the season. But I'm really excited to see him. Really, really neat guy. The thing that I'm more proud about anything else is when you see those guys, you know, go up to Rhode Island, you see what, you know, very talented people that are the way they are, like Greg and like Tyler and Cam and Brandon. I feel really, really proud, and I know we do as a staff, that those guys are, you know, representing us. So I expect him to go out there, be really sharp in terms of his assignments, and I know it's going to help him.
Todd, given where you guys were last year, what do you think about the expectations for the school this time around?
In terms of our expectations, it's going to be the same way that we've talked about beforehand. And at the end of the day, and Coach Herman has done a great job of this, and we always talk about all the time. We've got core values that we go, and probably the best thing that we do is convincing our guys to trust their training. We're going to train. You guys heard Coach Herman talk about this is going to be a hard camp, and he's never lied. And it's going to be a hard camp, and the training is not for everybody. And that our kids, if they can trust their training and then stick with the plan to win, if we can do that at a high level, forget about the predictions and all that stuff. It's not about that. It's about at what kind of level can we do that? And that's what this whole camp is about that. Can we train at a level that is elite? And can we sustain that thing all the way through camp? And we'll worry about Oklahoma when we get to Oklahoma. That's not the issue with it. So that's our expectations defensively and offensively and special teams are all based on that. And I think if you do that at a high level and you stay with what Coach Herman has mapped out, you can take the result, whatever it is.
But the tremendous, I guess really what I was referring to was the tremendous expectations from outside looking in. You're overwhelming favorite to win the conference, you're unanimous to win the division, stuff like that. What do you think about all that, Todd?
But that's the same thing I'm talking about. It's a non-concern to us. To me, it's like we talk about, and you heard Coach Herman say, a whole bunch of guys, that was last year's team. That's like the final last pat on the back for that team. It means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. When we line up tomorrow and we go at it, are we going to train in a manner that's elite? That's what it comes down to. And that's really what you chase during training camp is you find out who the guys you're going to go into the first game with. You don't even worry about that. I mean, when you're dealing with 18 to 21-year-old kids, they change daily. I mean, you could be a great player 3 weeks ago and come out there and just be, I mean, you could just be rock bottom. It happens. So we don't know what we have right now. On paper, yeah, we could put on paper, but you don't play games on paper. You line up and put the ball down. So once again, just goes back to what we're kind of all about. You hear the word culture. I look at it as this is our training, and it started with Coach McKnight getting out of the summertime in terms of what they're getting into. And then if we do it at a high level, then you take the results. If you don't do it at a high level, then you know what you're going to get. You're not going to be a good team.
Todd, as somebody who likes to get real creative in terms of your defenses and your schemes, having this front seven to work with, what's that going to enable you to do, and how excited does that get as a, in terms of creative playmaking?
Yeah, I think right now up front we've become better of getting off of blocks and some of our movement stuff of finishing plays. That was one of our goals in spring. This year's spring was to try to finish plays. So I feel good about that. And then obviously as Bowser starts to come along, and Stevie's kind of been consistent, we just got to make sure he does it. And then you'll see Matt Adams. You can be a little bit more creative in terms of it's in the package. You might have not majored in it. Our kids know it. But now we're going to major in it because this guy's become really a force pass rushing, or this guy's a really good blitzer, or this guy's really good on the run. So it gives you some flexibility where in the past it might have been look at the overall scheme and this is what we do because this is what we do, instead of looking at it and say, this guy's really good at doing this, and when he gets matched up on this guy, he's going to beat him all day. And I think having some experience and having some explosive players makes you think a little bit more about the matchups instead of the overall scheme.
Anything else for Coach? All good.
Good, thank you guys.
Well, players.